What if I told you that reading every single word correctly just isn't enough, and that your child can read a whole book perfectly and still have very little understanding of what they read? Today we're going to talk about some great strategies that readers use and how you can support your child in mastering these. My name is Gunilla Bengtsson. I've been a primary school educator for over 20 years, and this is a place where we come together as families and educators to support each other in raising thriving, resilient, and happy children. In this episode, I'm going to break down exactly what you can do to support your child in gaining comprehension strategies, so that they not just read the words correctly, but truly understand the meaning behind the text, the characters, the connections, and the feelings. When we talk about reading, we're basically breaking it down into two parts. One is decoding, which is being able to read the words correctly. Below in the commentary, I'm linking an episode where I'm giving you some strategies how you can support your child to decode the text. And the other part of reading is, of course, comprehension, which is what we're going to talk about today. You can think about decoding as putting a key in the lock, and comprehension as opening that door and exploring the whole house. Today, I'm going to walk you through 6 reading strategies which will help your child truly understand the deeper meaning of the text they're reading. And the first one is critiquing. So critiquing is when children form an opinion about the text, deciding whether they think it was enjoyable, well written, whether the characters were believable, and why. Now this is important because it teaches your children to think deeply about the text, not just accepting it as fact or equally good. This is an early step towards evaluating information they come across in everyday life. So to give you some examples of how you can support your child, I'm going to use a story that I think all of us are familiar with, Little Red Riding Hood. So to help your child developing critiquing skills about Little Red Riding Hood, you can ask them questions such as, did you like the way the story ended? And why or why not? You could also ask, do you think the wolf was believable? Critiquing helps your child think about the text, whether they like it and how they feel about it, which helps them pay closer attention to the details. Now the second strategy is analyzing. And analyzing means breaking the text into smaller parts, noticing how the characters are evolving, how events fit together, and how the author uses words to create a certain effect. Now this skill is important because it teaches your child to pay attention to the structure of the story, not just the superficial details. You can think about it as understanding the recipe of a story. Some questions you might ask your child to support them in developing analyzing skills might be, what clues did the author give us to make us understand that something bad was about to happen? Or how did the author describe Little Red Riding Hood? Analyzing helps your child noticing details of the story, the order of events, and changes in the characters, so that they can follow the plot more easily. Now the third strategy is inferring, and that is basically understanding something about the text without the author saying it directly, by using clues in the text and your own knowledge. This skill is important because it teaches your child to read between the lines, which is very important to understand more complex stories, emotions, and real-life situations. Some questions you might want to ask your child to help them develop inferring skills might be, how do you think Little Red Riding Hood felt when she realized that it wasn't Grandma in the bed? Or why do you think Little Red Riding Hood didn't notice that something was wrong straight away when she walked into Grandma's house? Inferring helps your child figure out what is happening, even when the author doesn't say it, and this makes the story richer and more interesting. Now, the fourth strategy is synthesizing. And this basically means taking small parts and putting them together into a big whole, such as a big lesson, the morale of a story, or the message. This is important because it helps your children to see the bigger picture rather than a list of events. Now, some questions you might ask a child to help them practice synthesizing skills might be, what do you think the author wants us to learn from the story Little Red Riding Hood? Or perhaps, if you were to describe the story to a friend in a few sentences, what might you say? Synthesizing helps your child put all the pieces together to see the big picture. The fifth strategy is making connections, which is basically linking the story to one's personal life, or perhaps another book which is similar, or things that are going on in the world. Making connections is important because it makes a story more personal and memorable, which helps your child understand it better. Now, some questions you might want to ask to support your child making connections could be, has anything like this happened to you? Have you ever got lost somewhere, like Little Red Riding Hood? Or perhaps, does this story remind you of something else that you read? Making connections help your child link the story to their own lives and other things that they know and care about. The sixth strategy is predictions, which is basically guessing what's going to happen next in the story. This strategy is important because it keeps your children engaged in the story, which also supports understanding. Now, some questions you might ask is, of course, what do you think is going to happen next? Or perhaps, what do you think would have happened if Little Red Riding Hood decided to turn back and go home instead of going to Grandma's house? Making connections keep your child more curious about the story, which helps them stay engaged and pay closer attention to what is happening. Now, to wrap up, you could ask any of these questions throughout the entire story. Or perhaps you want to sequence the questions by asking your children to predict before you read the story or early on. And in the middle of the story, you can pause and ask inferring and analyzing questions. And at the end of the story, you could ask your child questions that helps them practice synthesizing, critiquing, and making connections. Now, a mix of these kinds of questions will help your child to go beyond simply decoding the text to truly understand living the text and thinking like an author. And remember, every question you ask about a book is a chance for you to strengthen your child's thinking skills. Keep it fun, keep it curious, and watch their comprehension skills grow. Until next time, keep showing up for your children and happy reading. Bye for now.